The crystalline spires of Lumeria pierced the violet sky, like frozen lightning, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 moons into rainbow cascades across the capital city. Deep within the Grand Palace, Prince Theron stood before the Resource Council, his heart pounding beneath his ceremonial robes as he presented his proposal for the 3rd time this cycle. The quantum crystals belong to all Lumerians, he argued, his voice steady despite the hostile stares from the council members. Our current distribution system favors the elite while leaving our outer territories in darkness. We must change this. Commander Voss, the head of the council, merely smiled, a gesture that never reached his cold, silver eyes. Your passion for the common people is admirable, young prince. However, you lack the experience to understand the delicate balance we maintain. That night, as Theron paced in his quarters, the distant hum of the crystal reactors provided an ominous backdrop to his thoughts. His parents, the king and queen, had always supported his vision for a more equitable Lumeria. They were scheduled to return from their diplomatic mission to the outer territories tomorrow. Perhaps with their backing, he could finally. The explosion rocked the palace with such force that the crystal chandeliers shattered, raining fragments across the polished floors. Theron rushed to the landing pad, but he was too late. The royal vessel lay in ruins, black smoke curling into the night sky. As palace guards surrounded him, Commander Voss emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of false concern. "Arrest him," Voss commanded. "We have evidence that Prince Theron sabotaged the royal vessel. He sought to eliminate his parents to seize power and implement his dangerous reforms." "That's absurd." Theron struggled against the guards. "I would never." "The evidence is quite conclusive," Voss interrupted, producing a holographic display showing doctored footage of Theron near the royal hangar. "For the safety of Lumeria, you are hereby exiled to the wastelands." As Theron was dragged away, he caught a glimpse of his younger sister, Princess Lyra, watching from a balcony. The look of betrayal in her eyes cut deeper than any physical wound. Across the galaxy, Dr. Olivia Nash sat in her lab at the Earth Science Institute, surrounded by holographic displays showing energy readings from various worlds. Her research into sustainable power sources had led her to study the legendary quantum crystals of Lumeria. The crystalline formations supposedly contained enough energy to power entire star systems, but the Lumerian government kept tight control over both information and access. Dr. Nash, her assistant, James Werner, entered with a fresh cup of coffee. "The council approved your request for a research expedition to Lumeria. But there's something else you should see." He pulled up a classified file detailing the exile of Prince Theron 5 years ago. Olivia leaned forward, intrigued by the discrepancies in the official report. The energy signatures from the explosion that killed the king and queen didn't match any known sabotage patterns. Instead, they resembled controlled detonations using military-grade explosives. "The timing is suspicious," she mused, noting how the tragedy coincided with proposed reforms to crystal distribution. "James, dig deeper into Lumerian politics during this period. I want to know everything about the power structure before and after the exile." As their ship approached Lumeria weeks later, Olivia stood at the viewport, watching the crystalline world grow larger. She had come seeking scientific knowledge, but her instincts told her she would find much more. Somewhere in the wastelands, a wrongfully accused prince might hold the key not only to understanding the quantum crystals, but to uncovering a truth that could reshape an entire civilization. The capital city welcomed them with elaborate ceremonies, but Olivia noticed the tension beneath the polished surface. Commander Voss, now Supreme Governor, spoke of progress and stability, yet the outer regions of the city showed signs of energy poverty. As she set up her research equipment in the provided laboratory, Olivia began making discreet inquiries about the night of the explosion. Most citizens avoided the subject entirely, their faces showing a mixture of fear and resignation. But one elderly crystal worker, after ensuring they were alone, pressed a small data crystal into her hand. "If you seek truth," he whispered, "look beyond the wasteland's edge." Not all exiles die in the dust. That night, as Lumeria's moons cast their triple shadows across the city, Olivia studied the data crystal's contents. Hidden within seemingly routine maintenance logs were coordinates and sensor readings from the night of the explosion. The evidence suggested a carefully orchestrated plot, one that had sacrificed a king and queen to maintain control over the planet's most precious resource. She knew investigating further could jeopardize her research mission, and possibly her life. But as a scientist, she had dedicated herself to uncovering truth, no matter the cost. As she plotted a course to the wastelands, Olivia realized she was about to step into a story much bigger than scientific discovery, one that could either end in revelation or ruin. The wastelands stretched before Olivia like a sea of metallic sand, each particle containing trace amounts of degraded crystal fragments. Her expedition rover pushed through the harsh terrain, following the encrypted coordinates from the data crystal. James monitored their life support systems, concern evident in his voice. "The temperature's rising beyond safe levels," he warned. "These crystal fragments in the sand are generating interference. We should turn back." Olivia adjusted their shields. "Not yet. Look at these energy readings. They're forming a pattern. Someone out here is using crystal technology." A sudden sandstorm forced them to take shelter in a narrow canyon. As they waited out the storm, their sensors detected a faint energy signature emanating from deep within the rock. Following the signal led them to what appeared to be a solid wall, but Olivia noticed how the crystal fragments in the sand responded to it, glowing faintly. "It's a quantum resonance field," she realized. "Sophisticated camouflage technology." She calibrated her scanner to match the frequency, and the wall shimmered, revealing a hidden entrance. Inside, they found a network of caves transformed into a living space and laboratory. Scattered across various workstations were complex calculations and crystal experiments far beyond anything officially documented on Lumeria. Before they could investigate further, a voice spoke from the shadows. "I wondered how long it would take for someone to decode those maintenance logs." Prince Theron emerged, but he was vastly different from the royal portraits Olivia had studied. 5 years in the wastelands had hardened him. His once formal attire had been replaced by practical survival gear integrated with crystal technology. His eyes, though wary, still held the same intensity that had driven him to fight for reform. "Dr. Olivia Nash," he said, surprising her with his knowledge. "Your research into sustainable energy caught my attention years ago. I've followed your work from exile. And I've been studying the inconsistencies in your case," Olivia replied. "The explosion that killed your parents, the energy signature matches Lumerian military weapons, not civilian sabotage." Theron's expression darkened. Commander Voss didn't just want to stop the reforms. He needed to eliminate anyone who understood the true potential of the quantum crystals. He led them to his main laboratory, where a massive crystal formation pulsed with living light. "The crystals aren't just energy sources," he explained. "They're conscious. They respond to intention and harmony. The current harvesting methods are killing them, which is why the outer territories suffer from energy shortages. My parents discovered this and wanted to revolutionize how we work with them." Olivia approached the crystal, fascinated by its complex energy patterns. "Your research here, you've developed a way to communicate with them." "Crude attempts, but yes. The crystals showed me visions of their history with our people. We used to be partners, not exploiters. Voss and his supporters want to maintain control by treating them as mere resources." James, who had been examining Theron's calculations, looked up sharply. "These formulas, they could revolutionize energy distribution across the galaxy. But they'd also completely disrupt the current power structure, which is exactly why Voss moved against my family." Theron confirmed. "But I've learned something in exile that makes the situation even more urgent. The aggressive harvesting methods are destabilizing the planet's core. Within 5 years, Lumeria will become uninhabitable." Olivia shared a concerned look with James. "We need to get this information to the people, but Voss controls all official channels of communication." "Not all of them," Theron said, retrieving the small crystal device. My sister Lyra may believe I betrayed our parents, but she's not blind. She's seen how Voss's policies have hurt our people. She manages the public emergency broadcast network, a system even Voss can't fully control. You want to hack the emergency system? James asked incredulously. No, Olivia interjected, an idea forming. We need to work within the system. My research team has official access to the central archives for our energy studies. If we can prove the crystal degradation threatens planetary stability, it would trigger an automatic emergency broadcast. Theron finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. And once we have the people's attention, we show them everything, Olivia confirmed. The military weapons signatures, the crystal consciousness data, the environmental impact studies. But we'll need irrefutable evidence. Theron turned to his crystal array, its light pulsing in response to his proximity. The crystals themselves can provide that evidence, but accessing the central archives won't be easy. Voss's security forces guard them constantly. Leave the access to me, Olivia assured him. But we need to move quickly. If the environmental damage is as severe as your data suggests, we're not just fighting for justice anymore. We're fighting for survival, Theron agreed. He hesitated, then added, Dr. Nash, Olivia, why risk everything to help me? Your research mission is about finding the truth, she finished firmly. All of it, no matter where it leads. As they began planning their mission to the archives, none of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering outside the canyon, its crystal-powered transmitter sending images back to the capital. In his chambers, Commander Voss watched the footage with growing concern, then pressed a button to summon his security chief. Find my dear sister-in-law, he ordered. It's time Princess Lyra learned what really happens to those who threaten Lumeria's stability. Princess Lyra stood at the window of her private chambers, watching the sunset paint the crystal spires in shades of crimson. The same color as the warning indicators on her latest environmental survey. The outer regions were reporting unprecedented crystal degradation, but her requests for investigation had been repeatedly denied by the council. A subtle chime announced a visitor. Enter, she called, expecting another council messenger with more excuses. Instead, she found herself face to face with Dr. Olivia Nash. Your Highness, Olivia bowed slightly. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. My research team has discovered some concerning anomalies in the crystal energy patterns. Lyra's expression remained carefully neutral, but her fingers tightened on the datapad she held. Show me. As Olivia presented her findings, Lyra's practiced composure began to crack. The data matched her own secret observations. The crystal matrices were becoming unstable at an alarming rate. But Olivia's next words froze her in place. There's more, Olivia said quietly. We've found evidence suggesting the crisis began 5 years ago, coinciding with certain political events. Lyra turned sharply. Be very careful, Dr. Nash. Some subjects are dangerous to discuss. More dangerous than planetary collapse. Olivia held out a small crystal, similar to the one that had led her to Theron. Your brother was right. The mention of Theron sent a visible shock through Lyra. My brother is a traitor who murdered our parents. Your brother is alive, Olivia countered, and he's discovered something about the crystals that changes everything. They're not just energy sources, they're conscious entities. The current harvesting methods are killing them, and in turn, killing Lumeria. Lyra sank into a chair, her royal poise forgotten. Conscious, that's impossible. And yet, she looked at her own research data with new eyes. The irregular energy patterns. They're not random degradation, are they? They're responses, reactions to pain. Yes, and your brother has learned to communicate with them. But we need access to the central archives to prove it conclusively. Lives depend on it, including yours. Lyra's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Commander Voss knows we're close to exposing the truth. Do you really think he'll let anyone who knows about it survive? even the princess who's been quietly investigating crystal degradation. Before Lyra could respond, her security system flashed a warning. Armed guards were approaching her chambers. Lyra moved swiftly, pressing her hand to a hidden panel in the wall. A concealed door slid open. "The service corridors," she explained, ushering Olivia inside. "They lead to the old crystal meditation chamber beneath the archives. If my brother is right about the crystals being conscious," she pressed a small key into Olivia's hand. "This will get you inside. Go." The door sealed just as Voss's guards burst in. Lyra turned to face them, every inch a royal princess. "How dare you enter my chambers unannounced?" In the hidden passages below, Olivia navigated the twisting corridors, following the increasing hum of crystal energy. She activated her communicator, signaling James and Theron, who waited in a cloaked shuttle at the edge of the city. "I'm heading to the meditation chamber. Lyra gave us a way in. Be careful," Theron's voice crackled through. "Those chambers were sealed for a reason. The crystal concentration there is intense." The meditation chamber was a vast circular room, its walls lined with raw crystal formations. In the center, a massive crystal cluster rose from floor to ceiling, pulsing with inner light. As Olivia approached, the crystals began to resonate, their light synchronizing with her movements. She placed her hands on the central crystal, and immediately her mind was flooded with images. The ancient partnership between Lumerians and crystals, the harmonious exchange of energy, the growing corruption as greed overtook respect, and finally, the truth about the night of the explosion. The crystal showed her Commander Voss planting the explosives himself, using the confusion to implement his coup. But something else had happened that night. The dying king and queen, in their final moments, had merged their consciousness with the crystal matrix, preserving their memories and the evidence of Voss's treachery. Olivia gasped as the connection broke. Her communicator crackled urgently. "Olivia." James's voice was panicked. "Voss's forces are moving toward your position. You need to get out now." "Download completed," she replied, checking the data crystal Lyra had given her. It now contained everything: the historical records, the evidence of corruption, and most importantly, the consciousness transfer protocol that proved the crystals were sentient beings. The chamber doors burst open. Commander Voss himself stood in the entrance, flanked by armed guards. "Dr. Nash," he said smoothly, "I'm afraid I can't allow you to leave with classified military data. Hand over the crystal, and perhaps we can discuss your research funding." "It's not military data," Olivia replied, backing toward the central crystal formation. "It's the truth, and it belongs to everyone." Voss's facade of civility cracked. The truth. The truth is that people need control. Structure. The old ways of crystal communion led to chaos. I brought order to Lumeria. You brought destruction. A new voice rang out. Princess Lyra stepped into the chamber, her royal guards behind her. "I've seen the evidence, Voss. The planetary degradation reports, the suppressed research. You're killing our world." "The princess appears to be unwell," Voss said to his guards. "Take her to the medical wing, and arrest Dr. Nash for espionage." But as the guards moved forward, the crystals throughout the chamber began to pulse with blinding light. A resonant frequency filled the air, and every crystal in the room, in the entire palace, began to glow in harmony. Through their light, a message began to form, projected in patterns that every Lumerian could instinctively understand. The truth was finally emerging, and not even Voss could stop it now. The crystal resonance spread through the capital like a tidal wave of light. In every home, every public square, and every crystal-powered device, the truth manifested in patterns of pure energy. Citizens watched in awe as the history of their world unfolded before them, including the treachery that had shattered the royal family. Commander Voss's face contorted with rage as he watched his carefully constructed lies crumble. "Shut down the crystal grid," he barked into his communicator. "Initiate Emergency Protocol 7. But his orders went unheeded. The crystal consciousness, awakened fully for the first time in generations, had taken control of its own network. Throughout the city, the harvesting machines ground to a halt, their power crystals pulsing in harmony with the ancient songs of their kind. "You don't understand what you've done," Voss snarled at Olivia. "Without strict control of the crystal resources, our society will collapse into chaos." "No," Theron's voice rang out as he emerged from a hidden entrance, James beside him. "Our society will evolve." He approached the central crystal formation, placing his hand on its surface. The crystal's light intensified, responding to his touch. "The chaos you fear is nothing compared to the destruction your methods have caused." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes meeting her brother's for the first time in 5 years. In the crystal's light, she could see the truth that had been hidden from her. "Our parents," she whispered. "Show me." The crystal matrix shimmered, and 2 figures formed in the light. Translucent but unmistakable, the consciousness of the former king and queen, preserved in the crystal network, manifested before their children. Their forms were ethereal, composed of pure crystal energy, but their expressions carried all the love and wisdom they had possessed in life. "My children," the queen's voice resonated through the crystal frequencies. "The truth we discovered cost us our physical forms, but the crystals preserved our essence. We could not leave you alone to face what was coming." The king's energy pattern shifted toward Voss. "You feared the change that crystal consciousness would bring. But look around you. The harmony we sought is not chaos. It is evolution." Voss's guards, witnessing the manifestation of their murdered monarchs, lowered their weapons. The commander found himself increasingly isolated as more royal guards shifted their allegiance, moving to protect Princess Lyra and the returned Prince Theron. But Voss had one last desperate move. He pulled out a device that pulsed with angry red energy. "If I can't control the crystals, no one will. This resonance bomb will shatter every crystal formation in the capital. Without them, your precious consciousness will be destroyed, along with your parents' preserved memories." Olivia's scientific mind raced, analyzing the device's energy signature. The blast would trigger a chain reaction through the crystal network. The entire planet's crystal matrix could collapse. "Then the choice is simple," Voss declared. "Return control to me, or lose everything." Theron stepped forward, but it was James who acted first. While everyone's attention had been focused on the confrontation, he had been quietly working with his portable scanner. Just as Voss moved to activate the bomb, James sent a focused pulse of electromagnetic energy through the room. The bomb's crystal power source flickered and connected to the larger consciousness network. The bomb's crystal began to pulse in harmony with the others, its angry red light softening to the natural blue radiance of healthy crystal formations. Voss stared in disbelief as the weapon transformed in his hands into a conduit for the very consciousness he had tried to suppress. "You never understood the true power of the crystals," Olivia explained, her voice filled with wonder. "They don't just provide energy. They adapt, learn, and grow. Your weapon's crystal chose to join the harmony rather than cause destruction." The royal guards moved in, finally taking Voss into custody. As he was led away, the crystal manifestations of the king and queen turned to their children. "There is much work to be done." The king's energy pattern resonated. "The crystal network must be healed, and a new way of life must be established. One that honors the partnership between our peoples." Lyra took her brother's hand, years of mistrust dissolving in the crystal's revealing light. "We'll do it together," she promised. "The old wisdom combined with new understanding." Theron nodded, then turned to Olivia and James. "And we'll need Earth's help. This discovery doesn't belong to Lumeria alone. The crystal consciousness could revolutionize energy use throughout the galaxy if we approach it with respect and wisdom." "A collaboration between humans and Lumerians," Olivia agreed, her scientific excitement tempered by reverence for what they had witnessed. "There's so much we can learn from each other." As the crystal light continued to pulse through the capital, citizens began to gather in the streets. The truth had awakened something long dormant in Lumerian society, a memory of harmony between people and crystals, of power shared rather than hoarded. The revolution wasn't just about political power, it was about returning to a more enlightened way of existence. But in the depths of the palace detention center, Voss sat in his cell, a bitter smile playing across his face. Unknown to the others, one final failsafe remained, a network of crystal destabilizers planted throughout the wastelands, waiting to be activated. The revolution of light was not over yet. Dawn broke over Lumeria, the triple suns casting long shadows through the crystal spires. In the palace's central chamber, Olivia studied the holographic display of the planet's crystal network with growing concern. Something was wrong. The harmonious patterns they had established were showing subtle distortions, particularly in the wasteland regions. The resonance frequencies are shifting, she explained to Theron and Lyra. It's as if something is interfering with the crystal consciousness. James burst into the chamber, his face grave. Voss's cell is empty. And I found this. He held up a small crystal device, its surface etched with complex circuitry. It's a control node for something called Project Severance. Theron's expression darkened. During my exile, I detected unusual energy signatures in the wastelands. I thought they were natural crystal formations, but the Queen's consciousness manifested in a nearby crystal cluster. Voss prepared for every contingency. The wastelands contained a network of devices designed to sever the crystal consciousness. If activated, they would shatter the unity we've achieved and destabilize the entire planet, Lyra added, studying the energy readings. The crystal network is too integrated now. Breaking it would trigger catastrophic geological events. We have to find him, Olivia declared. The degradation patterns suggest he's heading for the primary control hub. If we track the resonance distortions, I know where he's going. Theron interrupted. There's an ancient crystal temple in the deep wastelands. It's where I first learned to communicate with the crystal consciousness. The temple sits at a nexus point of crystal energy lines. James was already preparing their equipment. If we take the experimental crystal-powered shuttles, we might be able to catch him before. A violent tremor shook the palace. Throughout the city, crystal formations flickered and pulsed with discordant energy. The king's consciousness appeared, his energy pattern showing signs of strain. He's begun the severance. The king's voice resonated through the crystals. We can hold the network together temporarily, but our consciousness will not survive another disruption. You can't die again, Lyra pleaded. We just got you back. The queen's energy pattern embraced her daughter. We were always meant to be a bridge, dear one. A connection between past and future. Now you must forge your own path. Theron gripped his sister's hand. They're not leaving us. Everything they were, everything they taught us, it's part of the crystal consciousness now, and part of us. Olivia's voice cut through the emotional moment. The shuttles are ready, but we need to understand what we're facing. James, what else can you tell us about Project Severance? While they raced toward the temple in crystal-powered shuttles, James explained his findings. The devices create an anti-resonance field. It doesn't just disrupt the crystal consciousness. It permanently alters the crystal structure. Even if we stop the process, any crystals affected by the field would be lobotomized. Olivia finished grimly, reduced to mere energy sources, without consciousness or connection. The temple came into view, an ancient structure of crystalline architecture, its spires rising from the wasteland sands like the skeleton of a fallen giant. Voss's shuttle was already there, and dark energy pulses emanated from the temple's core. They landed to find Voss at the temple's central altar, surrounded by humming machinery. The temple's crystals, once vibrant with consciousness, were turning dull and lifeless around him. Welcome to evolution, Voss sneered. The crystals will fulfill their true purpose, providing unlimited energy without the inconvenience of consciousness or choice. You're wrong, Olivia stepped forward. The consciousness isn't an inconvenience. It's the source of their power. Your method isn't just cruel, it's inefficient. The crystal's adaptive intelligence is what makes them such perfect energy sources. Listen to her, Voss, Theron urged. You were meant to protect Lumeria. Is this how you would save it? By destroying what makes it unique? Sentiment, Voss spat. The old ways made us weak. My way ensures survival. No, Lyra's voice rang out. This isn't about survival. It's about control. You would rather rule over ruins than share a living world. The severance wave expanded, causing the temple crystals to crack and fade. But as the wave approached the team, something unexpected happened. The crystal fragments in their equipment, pieces carefully chosen and nurtured by Theron during his exile, began to resonate with a new frequency. Olivia's eyes widened as she understood. The consciousness isn't just in the natural formations. Every crystal, no matter how small, is part of the network, and they remember. The small crystals in their devices linked together, creating a counter-resonance that spread through the temple. The dying crystals began to reawaken, their consciousness flooding back in waves of light and harmony. Voss lunged for the control panel, but James was faster. A precise shot from his crystal-powered stunner left the commander unconscious on the temple floor. As royal guards secured Voss, Theron and Lyra worked with Olivia to stabilize the crystal network. The consciousness of their parents appeared one last time, their energy patterns merging with the ancient temple crystals. The time of isolation is over. The king's final message resonated through the network. Lumeria must rejoin the galactic community, sharing the gift of crystal consciousness with those worthy to receive it. And who decides who is worthy? Lyra asked. The crystals themselves, Olivia realized. They're conscious beings. They can choose their partners. Months later, Lumeria had been transformed. Under the joint leadership of Theron and Lyra, the planet established the Crystal Communion Institute, where humans and Lumerians work together to understand and nurture the crystal consciousness. The first generation of crystal-enhanced ships prepared to explore the galaxy, each crystal choosing its crew through resonance compatibility. In her laboratory at the Institute, Olivia worked alongside James and a team of human and Lumerian scientists, documenting the incredible properties of conscious crystals. The crystals themselves continued to evolve, finding new ways to communicate and collaborate with their organic partners. And deep in the temple, where it all began, a new crystal formation slowly grew, its consciousness containing echoes of all who had fought to preserve it. A living memorial to the power of truth, cooperation, and the unending potential of harmony between different forms of life.